I don't know that it's going to fit on the screen, that one. I think it'd be really interesting to see which ones he actually picks, though, to fill up. I think it's like 4. You get to select 4 accomplishments.
Yeah, well, I think one of them he's very proud of is the top 4 at Worlds just last year. One of his first big breakout at the World Championships.
Yeah, and people always say, oh, you did well at Oceania International Championships, you did well at other ones, but, you know, Worlds is really the telling tournament because all the best players are there. And, yeah, look, you can see top 4 at Worlds in 2019, the Oceania International Champion here in 2018, Europe in 2017, and North America in 2017 as well.
It's not bad.
I mean, yeah, it's not bad accomplishments.
Yeah, and like we said, 7 out of the 14 international championships he has made top 8 at, and 3 of those 7 he has won.
That's very impressive. Yeah. I mean, no other player really has a resume that looks quite like that.
Yeah, at least in the game so far right now, someone maybe like Jason Klaczynski is the only one to hold a candle to him.
Oh yeah, I mean, Tort's right up there with, you know, players of the past that you would consider to be the best at the time, and, you know, Tort's definitely in that conversation.
All right, well, here we go with the prizes here. Now, Tort is playing pretty much one of his favorite decks now is the Mewtwo and Mew GX, with that perfection ability being able to copy any Pokemon GX in his discard or on the bench. That means he just fuels his deck with Welder, accelerating fire energies, and pretty much attack with any Pokemon he wants.
And he's not the only player who's going to be playing a Welder style of deck in this match even. So we have Zach Lesage there. He's playing that Reshiram and Charizard GX, also utilizing Welder. It's going to be a pretty exciting match, I would say.
Yeah, now Zach does have a lot of lower to the ground Pokemon that are 1 prize attackers, even 2 prize attackers. Tort's really going to try to attack with this Mewtwo and Mew GX for the entire game. It is his main source of damage output and how he really fuels his deck.
And straight away we see a quick ball there from Tort. He's throwing away a Solgaleo GX. It's hitting the discard pile straight away. Definitely the kind of card that he'd like to see in there early on so that Mewtwo and Mew GX can use its perfection ability to copy an attack like Turbo Strike and start flooding his side of the board with energy.
Yeah, we actually saw when this deck first came out, Turbo Strike was a card that, or a Solgaleo GX was a card that people played one of. Tord actually did really well in a few tournaments where he played 2 of them, just because it was such a unique card and a great way to increase his energy acceleration. Granted, there's so many different cards he can choose in his deck now that he opts to play just the one, but that's also thanks to having Victini V in the deck.
Yeah, he's very, very well known for having decks that are very consistent, playing lots of copies of those different cards. So I find it really interesting to see Tord playing a deck where there are many, many one-of copies. But typically that's just the nature of Mewtwo and Mew GX. There are so many different Pokemon that you want to take advantage of with their attacks and you know, GX moves. There's so many different ones.
Yeah, and there you see the Dene GX. Tord usually playing 4 of that card. It just loves drawing cards with Pokemon.
And why wouldn't you? I mean, in this deck especially, there's so many different pieces that you need to put together. I mean, sometimes a Welder is just not enough.
And the biggest thing in this matchup is going to be most likely the different gust effects that these players will be bringing. Tord only having access to 2 Great Catcher. Meanwhile, Zach Lesage really only has that Ninetales with that 9 Temptations ability to bring stuff to the active spot.
So definitely Tort has to be very cautious about what he's benching in that case. Pokemon like that Dedenne GX, they can, you know, they have a great ability. Dedenne change, you can discard your hand and draw 6. But having a look at Tort's hand, is that 3 Welder?
That is 3 Welder and no fire energy. This is looking to be pretty rough for Tort here, and that is not what you want to see to open up the top 8 here in Oceania.
Yeah, I mean, Dedenne Change, such a powerful ability. Discard your hand, draw 6, but you definitely don't want to be discarding 3 Welder in a deck that relies on getting all of that energy accelerated through that supporter card.
Yeah, and usually you see a card of like Palpad to be able to shuffle back Welders, as you only really play 4 to 5 supporters in your entire deck, but Tord actually not having a single copy of Palpad in his deck for this weekend, he will only have access to 1 Welder for this entire game.
I don't know if that's enough, Jeremy. I think you need more than 1 Welder.
Yeah, he's going to have to put a lot of reliance on the Solgaleo GX with its Turbo Strike attack. And there's the 4th Welder. Just like, yeah, we're going through all of them right now.
Yeah, easy. I can find all my Welders on 1 turn. Easily done. But unfortunately, he does only have 1 fire energy in his hand. Probably not going to be able to take advantage of Welder being able to attach 2 with its effect.
Yeah, especially being turn 1 as well. He'll
Oh,
have
of
to try to
course.
save that for next turn. And the thing he's going to have to watch out for, too, is Zach Lesage does have access to a Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff GX in his deck. It'd probably be one of the best attackers in this matchup, especially if Tort is forced to bench more Dedenne GX, more Mewtwo GX.
So if we have a look here, Zach has been able to find a quick ball. He's going to throw a fire energy into the discard pile, but he has plenty more in his hand, and he also has a welder.
Yeah, the hand is looking pretty good here. Anytime you can get one of your attackers out and then welder 2 energy to it and then attach for the turn, you're looking pretty good. Although, I think that's really all Zach has in his hand.
Yeah, and it looks like he opts to go for that Reshiram and Charizard GX. It was a tag team Pokemon that really had a big splash when it came into the format. It really dominated events. And now it seems it's just used as sort of like a backup Pokemon in Mewtwo and Mew GX. So it's really interesting to see it as the core of its own deck once again.
Yeah, it's kind of awkward where it first started out to be like a 3 of in a lot of these fire decks. But as time progressed, people are like, okay, maybe you don't need 3. I'm going to go 2. All right, well, now I just need 1.
Yeah, it's extremely powerful. Zach there just being able to get 2 energy down onto it using that welder.
Yeah, actually finds a Jirachi off the welder with a switch. So now Zach's hand will start to get going, and the quick ball means he has access to Dedenne GX. So we will see more draw power come from Zach this turn.
Yeah, what an incredible start. I think Tord is probably looking off the table and thinking, why can't my start be like that?
Well, I mean, it kind of was just, you know, the 3 welder in the hand.
Yeah.
Oh.
Minus being able to play a supporter, that is, unfortunately. But Zach here probably going to be able to get 3 energy down on that Reshiram and Charizard GX, if he so chooses.
Even has the escape board for the Jirachi. This is a great turn here for Zach.
Does play that Dedenne GX, going to find 6 new cards to keep his turn rolling.
Does have that Heat Factory Prism Star Stadium in his hand. One of the cards that is very beneficial for his deck, being able to discard a fire energy from his hand to draw 3 cards. But when your opponent is also playing a ton of fire energy in their deck, it could help them out even just more than you.
Deliberating whether to play it down, really thinking about it, does opt to put it down just to draw a few more cards. That's quite a lot of fire energy he's already put into the discard pile there, Jeremy.
Yeah, and again, this deck really only has one way to get those back, and that's through Victini Prism Star with its Infinity attack. But it also is able to get them back with Spreading Flames with Victini V, being able to get 3 fire energy from your discard and attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. Zach's definitely setting up this whole turn for that play.
Yeah, it's definitely Victini's style. Let's get some energy back from the discard pile. And really clever from Zach there as he's sort of spreading energy around the board. But there's a lucky egg. I don't think we've actually seen that card on stream across 2 days of this tournament yet.
Yeah, it was being used mostly in the Blacephalon deck from before, where it's kind of just resetting your hand. But there we see the Spreading Flames spreading the fire energy onto the Reshiram and Charizard. Now just 1 fire energy away from being able to double Blaze GX for 300 damage.
And you know what? That's going to knock out anything on Tord's side of the field. So that's incredibly threatening. And Zach's really saying, look, Tord, you now need to respond. Because if I can get that Ninetales out as well and use the 9 Temptations ability, I can knock out anything on your side of the board.
Yeah, and knowing that Tord only has 1 welder left and that it's in his hand, Zach can play a little bit close to the chest. He's going to put all his eggs in one basket on this Reshiram and Charizard, and it's looking pretty sweet here for this turn 1.
Yeah, certainly can take a little bit more of an aggressive approach, I'd say, just because he has a lot more awareness of what Tord's able to achieve this turn. I have to think maybe Tord's going into something like a Turbo Strike to start putting energies onto the board, copying that Solgaleo GX's attack that he discarded at the beginning of the game. But is it enough? Is it enough to put that many energies on the board?
Yeah, it's just a little bit awkward because Turbo Strike is not going to be able to deal enough damage to actually take a knockout on this active Victini V. And he also doesn't have another attacking Pokemon set up for the bench to receive the energy. We could even see something like a Spreading Flames of his own from Tord, depending if he gets enough energy in the discard.
Yeah, that will put 3 energy on the board instead of 2 from Turbo Strike.
But again, you don't even get much damage, any damage
yeah,
out of
there's
that.
no damage. It's a really awkward positioning there, especially having those 4 welders into the discard pile.
Well, 3. About to be 4, but
Oh, yeah.
again, though, does he even have another energy? Wow. Okay. We're going to need to see a giant hearth right here. And
There it is.
there it is with the first card. So Tord will actually have a pretty good turn of being able to discard the fire in his hand thanks to the heat factory to draw 3 cards, and then bump the stadium to play the giant hearth and discard a card from his hand to get the 2 fire energy that he needs for the welder.
Yeah, it's really handy when your opponent's playing the exact same stadiums as you.
And there we go. 3 free cards essentially, and also doing the job of getting fire energy in the discard for stuff like Turbo Strike or Spreading Flames.
So eyeing up a few different cards there. We can see a couple of, I think it's a Naganadel GX as well.
Yeah, and one of the ways that Tord is able to combat around these big tag team Pokemon is Tag Purge from Latios GX. Usually really great in this situation, especially staring down a fully charged tag team Pokemon. But Double Blaze's second effect of when it has 6 fire energy attached to it, it ignores all effects on the defending Pokemon as well as doing that 300 damage. So it just does not care about Tag Purge.
And I mean, Reshiram and Charizard is 1 away from being able to deal, to actually do that attack. Do 300 damage and just go through any effects on the opposing Pokemon.
Well, here we see the only welder for Tord this game attaching the 2 fire energy, and he is going to be very pressed for his resources from now on.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have many GX Pokemon in the discard pile which he can copy either. So maybe a bit limited in the plays that he can make.
Yeah, there's my welders.
Demonstrating his 4 welders. I'll just put those to the side. Don't need those anymore.
Yeah, usually you put the Pokemon to the side to show like what Pokemon you have to attack with.
Just needs to remind himself that he doesn't have any welders left. He does have a few different options, so he can play a quick ball and search through his deck and find an appropriate GX Pokemon that perhaps he can copy or that he could discard.
Yeah, you could maybe also see... he does have access to the Naganadel GX, the one with Stinger. Sometimes it's used, especially when you're on the back foot situation where Zach's putting a ton of pressure on you, where you can see something like a Snipe from Venom shot to deal 170 damage to that Reshiram and Charizard and then maybe clean it up later. But not having access to Welder for the rest of the game, it's really hard to just even attack.
Yeah, certainly. You've got to think that whatever this Mewtwo does now, if it's knocked out by that Reshiram and Charizard GX, what can Tord even follow up with? It's a very, very precarious situation here.
He still has not attached for the turn, but is something to be wary about. A second Mewtwo and Mew GX does hit the board, though, so Turbo Strike is now kind of an option, but there we go. The 4th energy comes down on that Mewtwo and Mew.
Yeah, deciding to commit fully to that Mewtwo and Mew GX. Get a quick ball again just to get out another Pokemon. It does look like it's that Latios that we were discussing earlier, the one that has Tag Purge.
Yeah, we could see maybe a sneaky Clear Vision GX here.
Yeah, we've seen it used against Arceus, Dialga, Palkia. Why not used here?
It's definitely not the kind of play you would want to do. You usually have so many different GX attacks to choose from that you usually want to take some prizes with those. But the Clear Vision might come in handy to... It essentially means Zach cannot take a knockout on Mewtwo.
Yeah, I mean, he can still deal quite a lot of damage with that second attack of Reshiram and Charizard GX, but that's probably better for Tord than being knocked out.
All right, and there is a Dedenne GX discarding the hand, drawing 6 new cards. Zach reading Tag Purge just to make sure, yeah, this gets through it.
And Tord here finds a couple of switches, finds a quick ball, some more energy for next turn.
The switches are actually pretty big. He did not have a way to get the Jirachi out of the active spot this turn so far. So now he has an option to actually attack if he wants to.
And then it just comes down to which attack Tord is going to be choosing to copy from his discard pile with that perfection ability on Mewtwo and Mew GX if it does come into the active position.
Yeah, really hoping for one of his 2 great catchers there to be able to bring up that Reshiram and Charizard GX to at least put some damage on it.
It was digging quite a while for that Latios GX, so it looks like it might be a pass from Tord there. He's choosing not to attack.
All right, so this is very risky. Remember, Ninetales from Zach Lesage's deck is able to bring up any bench Pokemon as long as you discard 2 fire energy. So if Zach is able to find that, that Mewtwo is not safe.
Yeah, I was hoping to see maybe a stealthy hood, something like that on the side of Tord, but that Mewtwo very vulnerable being on the bench there. If Zach can find the pieces to put together that Ninetales with 9 Temptations.
This is pretty good sequencing from Zach here. He's playing the Fiery Flint from his hand to discard essentially his entire hand except for the switch, getting a lot of his fire energy from the deck, able to thin it down. He's going to be able to switch into the Jirachi and kind of dig for a supporter, something like a Professor's Research or a Welder. And then that allows him to dig further to try to get into that Ninetales. And with the Fiery Flint, he also has the 2 fire energy for 9 Temptations.
So picks up those energies from his deck. Like you said, does have that switch, goes into Jirachi, and here he's going to use Stellar Wish.
It's going to be a big Stellar Wish for Zach. Needs to find the Ninetales, but there's no real card that finds it since he doesn't have a Pokemon in his hand, or else that Pokemon communication would have been perfect. But there is a Welder. So Welder being able to draw 3 cards is another out for it.
So we'll have to see which big... This is a big draw of 3 cards here.
Oh, for sure. He also chooses... It depends. Yeah. Do you attach the 2 energy from the Welder, too?
Yeah.
There is the Giant Hearth in play, though. Pokemon communication and a Pokemon with a fire energy off the top. That's exactly what Zach needs. But does he have the energy to attach to the Reshiram and Charizard? I think with the Giant Hearth, he might. Yeah, there is in the deck exactly enough cards, thanks to the Stadium in play, to be able to do a double blaze and take the knockout on the Mewtwo on the bench, essentially sealing up this game 1.
That was an amazing 3-card draw. I don't think he could have asked for more other than just drawing the Ninetales.
Oh,
that was perfect.
Oh, man. Zach is putting on a clinic here for just his 2nd turn of the game. He has 9 energy in play, brings up that Mewtwo, and Tord has to be looking towards game 2.
Yeah, I mean, without Welder, what options does he have to really accelerate energy onto his board? He may have to go into that Victini V, but just have a look, 6 energy on that Reshiram and Charizard GX.
That's crazy.
They don't even have to be discarded. They just stick there for the next turn.
All right, Tord, it is on you to try to mount this comeback, but it is looking impossible staring down this giant Reshiram and Charizard GX.
That's himself a quick ball so he can have a look through his deck again and decide what options he might have available to him there. Eyes a Dedenne GX, perhaps just so he can draw more cards for the turn. See what other plays are available to him through that Dedenne change ability.
But again, I don't know if there's much. He's going to have to Spreading Flames and just get some energy on that Mewtwo and Mew on the bench. But again, Zach would just need another few energy, although I think he's running out of them as the game goes on.
As we know, there's always a way to get them back, and that's that Victini Prism Star. And then we see Tord is finding that stealthy hood.
Yeah, he wishes he had that last turn to beat on that Mewtwo and Mew GX. One of the few ways to actually prevent 9 Temptations from Ninetales. So unfortunate that he didn't have it last turn, but now he has it.
Does mean that Mewtwo will be safe if the board state stays the same for now. It will be safe next turn.
And here is the Spreading Flames. 3 energy on that Mewtwo and Mew on the bench. But again, it only gets fire energy. There's 2 Psychic in the discard. And it is not looking good for Tort here. He only plays the 2 Psychic energy.
So really limiting the GX attacks that he can actually copy. And the attacks of the GX Pokemon in his discard pile.
And wow, we see another switch from Zach here. Able to reset his board. Gets that Jirachi in the active spot to use Stellar Wish to mold and shape his hand yet again.
And I'm excited to see that Victini Prism Star as well. Zach will have access to that at some point in the game.
We see Pokemon Communication, most likely the card of choice if he even wants to choose it.
For Pokemon Communication,
Opts to take that Pokemon Communication off the Stellar Wish.
Yeah, he actually has the Victini Prism Star in hand as well as a Fire Energy. But it is looking pretty sweet here for Zach. He's definitely in the driver's seat for this game.
Yeah, definitely. He has multiple attackers online. He knows that Tort is quite limited in the energy acceleration that he can achieve on his turns. It's just really now about sequencing.
Oh, wow. And there you see Zach. He was eyeing down that Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff, but opting, I don't really need it. Let's get this Detonate GX.
Probably a card that we've seen pop up in most decks at this tournament is Detonate GX.
It's been insane with the no supporters on turn 1. It's just shot up in the actual value in these decks.
Yeah, certainly in combination with that new Quick Ball card. So there we see a Detonate change, new 6 cards into Zach's hand.
And there you see the Pal Pad kind of just taunting Tord, like, yeah, I play this card. You don't.
Which will allow him to shuffle 2 supporters back into his deck. And of course, the target is Welder. Then we go straight back in.
What a surprise.
Yeah. And allow him to continue accelerating energy later in the game.
Honestly, though, I don't know how much later in the game we're going to be able to get to.
That's true. It's looking a little bit grim for Tord over there.
Yeah, after this turn, Zach is going to be able to go down to 1 prize card left. Does open himself up to stuff like Reset Stamp. Tord does play 2 of those cards. But the fact that Tord is going to have to struggle a lot to take a knockout, a one-hit knockout on the Mewtwo and Mew. And Tord plays his own copy of, he's not going to be able to knock out the Reshiram and Charizard. So Outrage just comes into effect.
Yeah, it has a lot of very versatile attacks, that card. All about power.
And the 4th energy coming down on the Victini V as well. That just increases the damage output. Now it's doing 120 damage just by itself.
So it's really punishing Tord if he even is able to find energy to put onto his Pokemon. That Victini V is just going to be doing so much more damage.
And there we go. Flare Strike takes the knockout. Zach is now down to 1 prize card left.
And you got to think with that Ninetales as well.
Oh, it's going to be pretty easy to try to pick off. He has 2 Fire Energy in hand. Oh, 2 prize cards left. My mistake. Should be 5.
Yeah, I think so. Mewtwo and Mew. And then
knocked out the Mewtwo and Mew, and then the Victini V. There we go.
Thank you.
See, I knew I was right.
He thought, oh, that was a bit too easy. I'll just take 1 prize.
Trying to win this game on hard mode.
Yeah.
All right. Now it is Tord's turn. I don't know what he can do to really affect this game much longer.
I mean, what can he piece together? He plays his own Reshiram and Charizard GX. That's not going to do enough damage, potentially. A lot of the other Pokemon that he has in his discard pile requires something like a Psychic Energy to be able to attack. Both of those are in the discard pile.
Even something like Macargo GX not really being able to get there, needs 5 basic energy on the active to actually take a knockout on a tag team Pokemon. Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff, again, dealing a ton of damage, but it's only going to be 240.
And I think if he commits that 4th energy to the Mewtwo, that might be enough for the Victini V to even get a knockout if he does find some way to piece a knockout on that Reshiram and Charizard GX.
Here we see the Stellar Wish from Tord. Finds the Reset Stamp, so that is the one thing. And there we go. Just Zach's very smartly making sure Tord is playing the Reset Stamp. Puts him down to 1 card, but with
Look at his board state,
two
Jeremy,
very powerful Pokemon charged up. It is looking like Zach's game to lose here. 1 to 6 prizes in Zach's favor.
And that really came down to the first couple of turns of the game, and really that first hand from Tord as well. Having to discard 3 Welders, crippling for this kind of deck.
Oh, it's changed the entire game.
So Tord here is going to retreat into that Mewtwo and Mew GX. Does have 3 fire energy attached to it, so
Oh,
is
here we see
able
Stinger.
to copy the Garnadel GX.
Shuffle them into the deck, place down.
All right, this is desperation at its finest. Tord is like, all right, you had 1 prize left. I'm going to put you to 3, reset stamp you down to 1. He actually can't Flare Strike next turn because he Flare Striked last turn. So he might have to retreat into the Victini V and try to get some damage that way.
How many cards do you have in your hands?
Could this open the door here for Tord to use something like Magcargo GX, perhaps to get a knockout on that Reshiram and Charizard?
Yeah, it's awkward though because he needed that 4th energy on the Mewtwo and Mew this turn, and then get the 5th one next turn to be able to take the knockout. Because as it stands right now, he's only going to be able to do essentially 250 damage. Well, there is the Giant Hearth discarding a Jirachi, gets the 2 fire energy, and this will be not game because the Stinger. Oh, there's the Welder, and that will be enough with the energy burst attack from Victini V to be able to take out the Mewtwo and Mew GX. The new V Pokemon taking down the old bad tag team GXs.
Oh, I wouldn't call them bad tag team GXs at the moment.
I'm saying they're bad because they've been ruling the format. Mewtwo's been everywhere. Yeah, he's the big bad.
He's the hero that's come in to avenge all the
David
other fallen
versus Goliath.
Pokemon. Yeah, absolutely. So Tord here, I mean, what can you say about what he can do differently next game? I mean, it's so easy to say, maybe don't discard 3 Welder, but it looked like that might have been his only option at the beginning of the game there. So what do you think Tord can do differently, or how should he play this matchup coming into the next game?
Yeah, well, Tord is going to have to not discard Welders. That is plan number 1. Make sure they are as far away from each other as possible.
And definitely try to accelerate energy onto those Mewtwo and Mew GXs pretty much as quickly as possible so he can keep pace with what Zach was doing. Zach came out of the gate really quickly and just had so many energy on his Pokemon even as soon as turn 2.
Yeah, honestly, I think if the psychic energy that was in Tord's opening hand was a fire energy, that game could have gone very differently. Being able to use at least one of the Welders for some value, and then maybe he would draw into something where he wouldn't have to play the Dedenne GX. It could have changed the entire landscape of this match.
Well, hopefully that's what we're going to see in this game, a little bit more of a close match and see how these decks really operate. I really want to see Tord perhaps getting some knockouts on those Pokemon on the side of Zach's.
Yeah, and we actually have confirmation that Tord is having Zach go first.
Oh, very interesting. That could be all part of the plan to Welder on the first turn. He wants to be the one that can utilize that Welder, get 2 energy down, get multiple energy down as quickly as possible.
Also, maybe kind of steal a quick game if Zach just has a supporter-heavy hand and nothing else to go with it.
And we've seen that happen, actually. We've seen a lot of players over this weekend just have one Pokemon in the active position and then not be able to find another one on the first turn of the game.
All right, we got a Stealthy Hood in the prizes for Tord. That's going to be pretty crucial. He wasn't able to find it in Game 1 early enough, and so maybe he won't be able to find it again. Again, it's all about if Ninetales gets into play.
So Zach is going to lead in this game. Opening with that Jirachi is a really nice basic to see in the active position. You can use that Stellar Wish ability to find things like Quick Ball, get more Pokemon down into play, or you can use things like Pokemon Communication to shuffle a Pokemon back into your deck and make sure that you're not just starting with a lone Pokemon that could potentially be knocked out on the first turn and give your opponent the win.
Yeah, exactly. And with Pokemon Communication, it does open the door to something like the Dedenne GX to be able to draw some cards this turn without having to use a supporter card. Again, the stock of the Dedenne GX has just gone up since this rule change.
Yeah, such an incredible card. It is essentially just like a supporter in itself. It is a 2-prize liability on your bench, perhaps later in the game, but often your opponent's too busy dealing with the attacking Pokemon and don't have time to really spend targeting something like Dedenne on the bench.
There we go, discarding the terrible hand that he had opened with, but it is now looking very good here for Zach. A new fresh hand,
That is not a lot of good cards that you want to see this early in the game.
Yeah, and he's actually opting to thin out the deck even more with that Fiery Flint, discarding 2 fire energies to grab 4 just because he needs this Stellar Wish to hit next turn. And the matter of the fact is, if it doesn't hit, and Tord is able to get a pretty fast turn with Welder and taking a knockout on the opposing Jirachi, Zach could be left with nothing.
Yeah, just a Dedenne GX against the world, it would be. So we're going to have to see. It's a pretty big Stellar Wish, actually.
Giant Hearth.
Does
and
find
there's
a quick
ball. All right.
But a whole heap of energy in his hand as well.
Yeah, he's discarded a ton of energy right now.
Having a look through, deciding, remember you can't use the Detonate GX twice in one turn if he does have a second that he's able to find.
Oh, if only. That would be the dream.
But it does find that Victini V. And so we spoke about how discarding those energy seemed like a big problem, but it's not so much when you have ways to get the energy back in. Both of the Victini cards that you play in your deck.
Yeah, and unfortunately, won't be able to actually use the Spreading Flames attack this turn. So we see just a pass of the turn. Now it's on the Tort. Is his hand better than before?
Now look, I'm not seeing 3 Welders and a Dedenne GX, so I think that's marginally better than what we saw last game.
Yeah, I'm seeing a pretty amazing hand here from Tord. Access to 2 Quick Balls, a Cherish Ball, as well as the 1 Stealthy Hood he has left in his deck to try to combat a Ninetales. We can see a pretty explosive turn here.
And straight away he flicks that Solgaleo GX up to the top of his deck, just thinking, maybe that's what I want to grab, that's what I want to throw away. It seems like a pretty consistent strategy for him is to have that Solgaleo GX in the discard pile, copy it with Mewtwo, and accelerate energy onto his board.
Yeah, well, now that he gets to go second, he's actually going to be able to hopefully get the first attack off here. So having the Turbo Strike to take a knockout on the active Jirachi, you're still getting the knockout that you want, but now you get to attach extra energy, and it's exactly where Tord wants to be.
Yeah, doing damage and sort of like half a welder as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a quick ball, putting that Solgaleo GX into the discard pile.
Yeah, we're going to see the Mewtwo and Mew GX here, and then the other quick ball is going to find the Dene GX most likely. Tord is really trying to dig for those welders now. Didn't have trouble finding them game 1, but this game he's going to have to put in a little bit of work. Does have that Giant Hearth as well. That's probably the best card you could ask for if you have to discard your hand with the Dene, because you can just play it down and then guarantee you'll have 2 fire no matter what.
So really all then you have to find is a welder.
Yeah.
So we have the Detonate GX. Does look like that's going to be his target. Interestingly, in his hand is the only other Stealthy Hood that he has in his deck. The second one is prized. So if we see if he's having a look through his deck and seeing that, perhaps not the most critical card right now. We don't see a Vulpix on the side of Zach's, but you know, it could come into play a little bit later on if Zach does set up a Ninetales.
It's definitely something to look out for. And again, remember, Zach only had his first turn, wasn't able to play a supporter. So as the game goes along, he's most likely going to get Vulpix and Ninetales into play, and you're going to really want that Stealthy Hood.
All right. Towards assessing his options.
His hand is really good.
It's actually amazing. And he still hasn't played a supporter, Jeremy.
Still hasn't played a supporter, still has not Stellar Wished yet. Does he find the welder?
Whoa.
Ooh.
Is that 5 energy and a switch?
That is 5 energy and a switch. That is almost, I think that's worse than Zach's Dead Change.
This troubles me greatly.
All right, well, there's the Giant Hearth discarding of fire energy. Gets 2 from his deck to thin it out, and this Stellar Wish will need to find the welder now.
Yeah, Tord definitely needs to find the card that he found so easily last game.
It's just taunting him.
Yeah, not having too much luck in this one. So we're going to have to see 5 cards off the Stellar Wish, looking for that welder.
And this is, even though it's the turn 1 of the game for Tord, this is very big.
All right, here we go.
If he's not able to put on a lot of pressure, Spreading Flames is going to get out of hand.
Oh, I don't see a welder.
There's no
I don't see a
welder.
supporter.
There's no supporter either. Only a Cherish Ball or a Giant Hearth, I believe. Reset Stamp as well. And Cherish Ball, usually something pretty good. Get something like the Dene GX, but Tord just used his. Oh, no.
Yeah, this is not ideal from Tord's side. Looks like he's going to have to choose a Cherish Ball. Really wanted to find a welder. If not that, then some kind of supporter. I know he does play 1 Professor's Research in his deck, but yeah, really wanted to see that welder.
The one thing about the way Tord has built his deck as well is how, no matter how powerful Mewtwo and Mew GX is, throughout the entire deck, there's no GX Pokemon that can actually attack for 1 energy here. So he's really just going to have to bring up this Detonate GX and say, I didn't have anything. I hope you don't have anything.
And especially with his hand, he's really valuing that Jirachi, hoping that he can have another go at Stellar Wish next turn to be able to find a welder, excuse me.
Oh, wow. And Zach is bailed out of the top of his deck with the Dene GX. Granted, he still has access to Stellar Wish to try to find something like a Welder, but opts to discard those 3 fire. Here we go. And there is a Welder in his hand, as well as something like a Heat Factory.
Don't really see... Where is the Lucky Egg? There is... there was the Welder.
Yeah.
So he does have Heat Factory as well. There are multiple ways that he can hopefully find some fire.
Well, he has the
energy.
Giant Hearth in play.
Yeah, yeah. Lots of different ways, but, you know, what are you going to attach it to, though? You need to find a Pokemon that you're going to be attaching these energy to with Welder. It does look like he has a Mega Lopunny, which is not the worst option in this matchup. You know, you are expecting Tord typically to play a lot of things like the Dene GX down onto the field, and maybe, other than the Mewtwo, maybe 1 or 2 other GX Pokemon, so could be a viable attacker at some point in this game, but right now you're sort of looking for something else to put those energy on.
Yeah, we could see possibly Zach choose to play the Heat Factory, discard one of his 2 fire energy to hopefully draw into a Pokemon and another fire energy to fully maximize that Welder. But Victini V is also a pretty good attacker in this matchup. We saw him clean up game 1 with it.
Looks like that.
Oh, he's putting on the Jirachi, so this is signifying that maybe Heatran could come into play later on in the game.
I don't see a way for him to find it just yet in his hand, though. He's still looking at his discard pile, and I think there's maybe 8 or 9 energy cards in there.
Yeah, he has been burning through that. He's basically discarded at least 3 energy with both of those Dene.
Victini V comes into the active position, and that card is going to be able to get some of those energy out of the discard pile.
Yeah, and he's able to attach it anywhere on his side of the field, so kind of spreading it around a little bit, putting Spreading Flames to its namesake.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of like 1 on each Pokemon at this point. Very different to the first game that we saw, where there was a stack of energy on that Reshiram and Charizard GX as early as turn 2. This time it doesn't look as threatening from Zach's side of the field.
Meanwhile, Tord, oh man, draws a quick ball for the turn, but searching for basic Pokemon is not what he needs right now. Does have the switch in his hand, so he will be able to switch into the Jirachi, maybe dig for Welder again.
Yeah, have another go at sort of finding that Welder card. Looks like he's eyeing up that Victini V, the same that Zach has just attacked with, recognizing that might be another way to get some of those fire energy into play.
Yeah, well, you kind of sense a weakness from your opponent. You don't have many good attackers in play, and you started charging up the Dene and Jirachis. All right, well, maybe I'll just do the same, but actually charge up my Mewtwo's.
Yeah. It's certainly a more viable attacker than just that lone Victini V that I'm seeing on the other side of the field in terms of attacking Pokemon. Does have a Cherish Ball as well, so we'll be able to find another GX Pokemon, and that's going to be the Dene GX to keep his hand moving along.
And now this is going to be a little awkward because Tord's going to discard a lot of the fire, but I think that's why he prioritizes Victini V so much.
Yeah, be able to get those fire energy back into play onto that Mewtwo and Mew GX. He has a great card, Torts. He's just not finding them in the right order.
Yeah, unfortunately for him. But again, still does have access to that switch. We could see him try to roll the dice a little bit for that Welder before the Dede change.
He's thinking about it. Deciding whether to Stellar Wish or Detonate GX first, I think. Decides to go for that Dede change, discarding those energy cards and drawing 6 fresh ones. Will we see a Welder and a way to get energy?
There is a Welder, so finally, after the abysmal game 1 of having to discard 3 turn 1, finds his first Welder of the game here for game 2.
And that giant Hearth, is it just collecting 1 fire energy? Wow, Tord has discarded all but 1 of his fire energy. They're all there in the discard pile. So only able to find 1 off that giant Hearth.
Yeah, he's kind of forced into using Spreading Flames this turn.
Does have another one in hand, so he will get maximum value out of that Welder. Putting those 2 fire energy, having a little think. Will they go on the Victini? It's got to be Mewtwo and Mew GX.
Yeah, he actually
Only
opts
puts
just to attach
one.
the one.
Does find a psychic energy, so he'll be able to have quite a versatile turn next turn if he does attach that to the Mewtwo and Mew GX and get some of his GX Pokemon in the discard pile.
Yeah, and it's actually a pretty heads-up play from Tord there to only attach the one fire energy for the welder, because with only having one more left in his deck, with it being in his hand as well, that means he still can play a welder next turn if he wants to draw some cards.
Yeah, absolutely. Being one of his very few supporter cards that he plays, ways to draw cards in his deck. Looks like he's going to retreat into that Victini V and start to accelerate some fire energy. Or rather, recover some fire energy from the discard pile.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he decides to put all his eggs in one basket on this Mewtwo and Mew GX, or if he decides to kind of spread it out a little bit, gets it on the Victini V as well.
There we are. So he's opted for the latter option there. A couple on the Victini, a couple on the Mewtwo GX. A little bit less risky to put those energy onto the Mewtwo and Mew GX, just because we're not seeing that gust option coming out of Zach just quite yet with that Ninetales 9 Temptations.
Yeah, not having access anywhere close to it for the next few turns, and especially with Stealthyhood on that Mewtwo, it is essentially safe for the entire game.
So it's really interesting. We used to have a Mewtwo that had a similar attack to Victini V, and you'd often see these Mewtwo's battling against each other. And, you know, that's what we're seeing right here. It's Victini V against Victini V.
Oh, man, bringing me back.
So Zach here, what can he piece together? He's probably looking for an attacker that might not be Victini V here.
Yeah, again, looking for most likely Heatran, just to be able to utilize the energy that he got onto the field last turn.
Yeah, certainly not the targets that you would want to be seeing those energy on, the Detonate GX and that Jirachi. Not really utilizing fire energy.
Yeah, you saw him eye it down too, but opts for that Vulpix. Maybe we could see it fetched later on in the game, but it is one of those cards that will be able to take a knockout on the opposing Victini V.
Does use that Giant Hearth to grab 2 more fire energy. Get those into play as well. One thing that Zach's deck has done really well so far is really just get energy into play. He's been able to piece that strategy together very well. But at the moment, they're not on the right Pokemon.
Yeah, definitely not.
We have seen Jirachi slapping during this weekend. It doesn't do that for fire energy.
We see another welder in Zach's hand as well. And I wonder if he has access to something like Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff with 3 GXs on Tord's side of the field. It does do 240 damage. Could be another good attacker.
We do see an attachment to that Vulpix there with that Welder. Just one energy attachment with Welder. A whole lot of options in Zach's hand. He can keep looking through his deck. He can keep digging. He can find Pokemon. He can find energy cards with Fiery Flint. It's just what strategy he's leaning towards here. He does see that Victini Prism Star. That's going to come into play later on if his discard pile is filled with fire energy. Great way to just come onto the board and take a big knockout. But we actually see that Turtonator drop onto Zach's bench there.
Yeah, it's one great attacker in this matchup, and it's also another way to utilize the extra fire energy you have in play thanks to Spreading Flames. Explosive Jet is a great attack for cleaning up these big tag team Pokemon.
Lucky Egg come down there onto the Victini V. Again, a card that we just haven't seen.
And Zach is just building up his board here, making it just too oppressive for Tord to really handle. And Spreading Flames now has a ton of energy in play. I believe it's 10 energy in play for Zach here. That's over half of the energy he plays, and he plays 18.
That should be enough energy to achieve a knockout at this point in the game.
That's more than some decks even play. Obstagoon only plays 9.
Hey, let's not rag on Obstagoon. That's a great deck, all right? Like, come on. So Tord here, it's got to be looking across the board and thinking, wow, you have loads of energy in play. How am I going to deal with this?
Yeah, and the one kind of deck decision for Tord only playing 2 Great Catcher is coming back to bite him here. That Turtonator is just going to be sitting pretty, maybe trying to eye something down like a Venom shot to take the knockout.
Yeah, certainly an option available to him. He does have energy to play onto that Mewtwo. Does find a Psychic Energy as well.
Yeah, I think he already had one in hand, but the Quick Ball will be pretty good at getting the Magneto GX if he doesn't already have it in the discard, because he'll be able to discard it with the Giant Hearth if he chooses to. It'll just depend if he actually goes for the Venom shot, but I think that's going to be the best play for you. You also discard the extra energy that you have on Mewtwo, so it lowers the actual damage output that Victini V can do to you.
Yeah, that would certainly be a very clever play at this point in the game. There isn't a Garnet
It's already in
there.
the
I
discard.
do believe it's the right one.
All right, Tord, we're on the same wavelength.
Just one step away from being international champion, Jeremy. All right, so Mewtwo and Mew GX coming into the active position there. Remember, it's Perfection ability allowing you to copy a Pokemon's attack in the discard pile, a GX Pokemon that is, and he is going to copy Naganadel GX, taking a knockout on the Turtonator, which Zach set up last turn. It was looking like the biggest threat on the side of his field, so cleverly Tord has taken that out of the equation, and we're back to a field for Zach that has one Victini V in the active position and a whole lot of fire energy spread all over the place on Pokemon that you probably don't want to see it on.
Oh, for sure. And Zach does have one out to really take a knockout here on this Mewtwo and Mew GX, and that's with Heatran GX, which he
And
just
we do
drew.
see it from the welder. Wow, drawing 3 cards, and it's one of those 3 cards.
Yeah, but the thing that is very scary here is the fact that when you're moving all the energy to this Heatran GX with Burning Road, you're going to need 6 fire energies to actually take the knockout with Hot Burn GX. The thing, though, Victini V is able to do massive amounts of damage, but I think Tord might be out of fire energy, with Victini having 2 fire for its attack cost.
Yeah, we're going to have to see how he'll be able to respond to this Heatran GX. Not a GX that people would have looked at initially and thought, oh, this is an amazing card, but it has really cemented its place in these Reshiram and Charizard GX decks, just being so versatile, able to come into the active position and just take fire energy from anywhere on your board.
Yeah, usually seen in the past to deal with a lot of one prize attacker decks, something like Malamar. It's able to take a hit or two, and it does 130 damage, which is a very respectable number.
Looks like he's definitely considering playing that Heatran down.
I honestly think he has to, with how much energy he has in play.
Doing a little bit of math.
He'll still be able to keep, I think, 1 on the Victini unless he has a switch in his hand. Oh yeah, so it's 2 retreat, never mind. So he's going to be left with just all 6 energy on this Heatran GX in the active spot.
Pretty impressive play, though. He will clear towards side of the field of most of the energy and take 3 prizes, going down to 3 prizes until he has to progress to, until he gets to progress rather, to the top 4 match.
Yeah, this is scary for him, though. Again, if Tord was just playing coy and still has a fire left in his deck, he'll be able to take a big return knockout. But there we go. Hot Burn GX. Zach Lesage is now just 3 prizes away from moving on to the top 4 here in Oceania.
So big turn for Tord here. Can he respond to this Heatran GX that is bearing down on him with 6 energy attached to it? His opponent only needing 3 prizes to win the game.
It is not looking good for Tord here.
Does quick ball away that Naganadel GX. Could we maybe see one of those stinger plays coming out again?
Honestly, he first needs to get a Mewtwo in play, and not having any fire energy in the deck or his hand means Welder is a non-issue yet again. So now it's the 2nd game in a row where Tord is unable to play Welder, but this time he actually has him.
Yeah, you got to be super disappointed from Tord's side. Just not finding the cards in the right order either. Sometimes you have Welder and no energy. Sometimes you burn through all your energy, but you have Welder.
And the thing to actually worry about for if you're Zach is his deck's getting pretty low. Now, it's not really a thing you have to worry about unless you're playing against one of those dedicated mill strategies. But the thing with Tord's deck, he actually does play a Magcargo GX, and with its GX attack is able to mill the top 5 cards of Zach's deck. So if he gets low enough, that could be the way Tord seals this game.
I have to say, that would be a really exciting finish, I think. No one would expect that out of out of Tord's style of deck, that's for sure.
We might have to see another Spreading Flames here from Tord just to build up this Mewtwo yet again. And thankfully, the Heatran, since its GX attack is being used up, it only does 130 damage as its maximum.
Yeah, quite a lot less threatening once it has used its GX move. I do like to see that Stealthy Hood come down on the Mewtwo and Mew GX that Tord was able to play on the bench there, almost denying Zach from being able to take 3 prizes next turn. Tord's looking through his deck, seeing what options are there still.
And Zach breathing a sigh of relief. No fire energy from Tord there from that Giant Hearth. And that means this Heatran is staying around once again.
Tord does have a couple of reset stamps as well, so I'll be interested to see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he even values them, depending on if he wants to go for this kind of mill strategy. But Spreading Flames is going to get some fire energy on the bench Mewtwo, and then a second fire energy on the active Victini V. This is important. This means next turn, Zach's only going to be able to do 130 damage, and then pass the turn back to Tord. Tord will then be able to take the knockout with the active Victini V.
Suddenly putting 6 energy cards onto that Heatran GX might be working against Zach. That energy burst attack of Victini V potentially coming in very clutch there. We've got to see if Zach can find a way to get more energy on the board and on different Pokemon. But if you have a look, all of his bench slots are actually taken up. He can't start powering up something different. Perhaps that Charizard, I was going to say that Reshiram Charizard GX or something like the Mega Lopunny, but that's just hit the discard pile.
Yeah, it's definitely awkward here. Not many resources left in Zach's deck. He also has a full bench, so he's really going to just have to play with what cards he has available to him right now. And one card that he could be trying to find is Ninetales, Nine Temptations, maybe bring up some stuff and put some chip damage on. But Stealthy Hood's putting in a lot of work right now.
Yeah, very good that Tord was able to find that Stealthy Hood off the prizes, but it looks like it's just going to be 130 damage on that Victini V, and perhaps the momentum have swung back into Tord's favor here. He does have energy on the board. He has GX Pokemon in the discard pile that he can work with. He has a Victini V in the active spot with enough energy to attack with Energy Burst.
All right, this is going to be a pretty big turn from Tord here. It depends if he's actually going to try to take the knockout with this Victini V, just kind of sacrifice and say, here you go. But that escape board also means he does have more access to that Mewtwo and Mew on the bench. Discards the Macargo GX off the Giant Earth, and Zach scoops it up. He must have had 5 or less cards in his deck.
Seems to be some
Is there something wrong with our game?
discussion, but I think that was... Yeah, it looks like the Macargo GX just won Tord the game. So recognizing that was his win condition, able to discard all the cards in Zach's deck there. I would say a very unexpected finish. I know you called it, but it's not often easy for us to tell how many cards are left in each player's deck.
Yeah, well, that's the one downside to moving all of your energy to this Heatran GX. You put all your eggs in one basket to do a big 300 damage turn. But then after that, you're limited to just 130 damage each and every turn, especially with a full bench. So Tord played that game perfectly to where he's able to just have Zach waste a ton of these resources digging for all that stuff. We saw him these first few turns discard 3 cards with Dead A Change. Next turn, discard 3 more cards with Dead A Change. Play Fiery Flint, get even more cards. He just went through his deck insanely fast, and Tord is able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, definitely punished Zach's sort of aggression there, but you know, sometimes you just have to play aggressively to find the tools you need to chain your knockouts. And I think that match really showcased the power of that Victini V card. I mean, we haven't talked about it a lot this weekend, but it's one of those new V cards from Pokemon Sword and Shield that has really, you know, it's featured in a few different decks that we've seen. Of course, this Mewtwo and Mew GX Welder and the other abilities are decks that we've come across. I think it's made a really good case for being a strong card at this tournament.
Yeah, everyone had the spotlight on Zacian V, but Victini V is able to take down opposing Zacians as well as just charge up your Pokemon for most of the matchups.
Yeah, we have a lot of decks in the current format that really like to have a lot of energy on their Pokemon, things like Pikachu and Zekrom GX, or in that case, that Mewtwo and Mew GX. And of course, we saw in the first game Zach's Charizard and Reshiram GX, excuse me, so forgot which tag team it was, had a lot of energy cards on it. So yeah, you can just see how that Victini V can really utilize its energy burst attack to just get knockouts at unexpected times. I mean, it only attacks for 2 energy, so that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and again, I can't understate how powerful Spreading Flames is in both of these decks. Just being able to recharge after a lot of attacks, something like charging up that Turtonator was very powerful. If Tort didn't have that Venom shot that turn, that Turtonator is going to put in a lot of work and probably would have won Zach that game, not having to commit so much on that Heatran GX.
Yeah, it's just one of the ways, you know, these decks used to have things like, just like Victini Prism Star that could get energy back from the discard pile. It really needed something else. I mean, it had Fire Crystal as well, but you had to pair a Fire Crystal with a Welder, and you only run 4 Welder. So this is just a way to kind of skip a couple of those steps and really accelerate energy onto the board without having to play a supporter. So.
Yeah, and it's also just pretty good in the most popular matchup, which is Arceus Dalgopalkia.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're weak to fire, of course it's great. Yeah, it's a great card to attack with. So I'm wondering, you know, that matchup a little bit closer in that sense. I would say that perhaps Zach didn't have the best start to the game. He was looking for attackers that he could utilize a little bit more early on. Maybe that Reshiram and Charizard GX, for example, getting some energy on that. And I don't think we ever saw his Victini Prism Star ever come into play. Do you think that will have a bit more of an impact in the third match?
It depends. It's better in matchups where your opponent's Pokemon don't have 270 HP. You kind of need it very late game to get all of your energy and kind of take the knockout. It's more for being able to take really easy knockouts on metal Pokemon or even just Pokemon with 220 HP, 240 HP. But then you have stuff where it just shuffles back into your deck, all your fire energy, and then it turns on all the welders you have left, turns on your giant hearths again, and it's one of the most crucial cards in this deck for Zach.
Yeah, I'd say it's also great being a single prize attacker.
Yes.
When a lot of different decks are just looking to take 2 big knockouts on GX Pokemon, or maybe 3 knockouts, 2 big knockouts on Tag Team GX Pokemon, or 3 knockouts on GX Pokemon. You know, if you're able to disrupt their sort of attacking plan by making them take an extra prize card off that Victini Prism Star, it can definitely come in handy there as well. So I'd be interested to see if either of those sorts of, either player opts to go for a Victini Prism Star at this point in the match.
Also being able to attack for just playing a welder, attaching 2 fire energies, is very important to see. Most of the cards in Tort's deck, in even Zach's deck as well, attack for essentially just 3 minimum.
Yeah. I'd say the same for that Victini B as well. It attacks for 2, energy burst, fantastic card. Really great to be able to get energy back as well, since we're playing so many cards that are quite aggressively running through the deck. So things like Quick Ball, but we also know, Fiery Flint as well.
Which is only one of copy in most decks. Zach's opting to play the 2, really just pushing the aggressiveness of his deck.
Yeah, which I think is something I would say we've seen a lot of this weekend, decks being aggressive. We've said the word aggressive quite often, and it's thanks to those cards like Quick Ball and Professor's Research as well, which interestingly Tord does play a copy of, so he also wants to play quite aggressively. And of course we have to talk about Detonate GX as well. Detonate Change is probably one of the more aggressive abilities coming out of the cards that we see in the metagame. You know, you play it, you discard your entire hand, you draw 6. It's really digging through your deck. So often you're going to throw away some pretty key resources. I mean, we saw that in the first game as well with Tord throwing away 3 Welder all at the same time. You know what? I don't think he's going to go back and watch this video. It's a little bit too traumatizing, seeing 3 Welder hit the discard pile in that first turn of the game. So, it'll be interesting to see this matchup and these 2 caliber of players when their decks are performing perfectly or how they want them to perform.
Yeah, it's great to see that Tord actually choose to go second in that match and pull out the victory. Not how he thought he would pull it off, but it's a victory nonetheless.
Oh yeah, we take those wins, right? We take those wins. So we're about to go into the third game of this match to decide who's going to progress to top 4. Do you think these players are feeling any kind of nerves, or do you think they're, such high-level players, they've done this all before? It's just like playing at local league.
Well, it's never playing at a local league because there's so much riding on the line here in top 8. A ton of money, a ton of booster packs, the title on the line, and then, of course, the championship points as well, even though both of these players well past their invite to Worlds already.
Oh, I don't know about that. Do you think so?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
But I mean, the championship points, they're always great as well. Like, you need a certain amount of championship points to qualify for that World Championships, which everybody wants to play at. Every player dreams about playing at the World Championships, lifting that trophy, and calling themselves a world champion. So, you know, those championship points, always great, great to earn. And, you know, a lot of people boast as well. Hey, this season I got 1,500 championship points. How many did you get? So it's a mark of success.
Yeah, it used to be like, oh man, getting like 500, 550 is hard. But then people got like, all right, I'm going to get like 800 and stuff like that. Then we had a few people break the 1,000 championship point barrier. And then last year we had people in the 2,000s.
Well, these people, too consistent.
One of those people, I'm pretty sure was Tort.
Yeah, well, unsurprising given his one, what was it? He's made top 8 at 7 of 14 international championships. So, you know, that comes with a lot of championships there. I'm not sure, championship points there. I'm not sure what the judges are deliberating, but hopefully we'll get into game 3 of this match fairly soon. I don't think...
Yeah, so I believe in game 1, Tord actually accidentally played quick ball twice.
Okay.
The same quick ball.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so I think they're trying to figure out how to proceed. It is a very egregious error for Tord, especially being here in the top 8 of the international championships.
Yeah, I mean, and they'll just decide, you know, what we need to do about that to fix this game state. So while they discuss, we'll have a chat, I think, a little bit more about how the tournament's been going, and how all the sort of different divisions have shaping up. Have you had a look around maybe at what the senior and junior division players are playing?
I have not, although I did cast Reagan's round 1 match. It was a mirror match of Reshiram Charizard with all the abilities.
Okay.
So it's kind of the deck we're seeing now. They ended up in a tie, unfortunately, Reagan able to pull off the game 2 victory, but then not having enough time to even start game 3.
Yeah, okay. And so I guess that sort of indicates that these players in the junior and senior divisions as well are also playing similar decks to what we see in the Masters division. So they're sort of equally skilled players, but I would like to see how their metagame shapes up as well. And I think it's going to be really interesting tomorrow on Championship Sunday when we get to see the junior division final, the senior division final, along with, of course, our Masters division final as well.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to it too, because you and I are doing the juniors and seniors. We'll actually get to see who will be crowned a champion in both of those divisions.
Yeah, and I always think that's really exciting. You know, a lot of the players, they travel in big groups. So you see people from, let's take Canada, for example, where Zach Lesage is from. There'll be a big group of players coming over to cheer on their local players and make sure they're, you know, feeling supported at the international championships. And the junior division, senior division, that's where you see it really shine. Everyone comes out to really support their younger players, cheer for them, and hope that they're going to lift the trophy at the end of the day.
Well, honestly, a lot of these juniors and senior division players, they're just already better than a lot of us. They're way better than me. Someone like Kaya, I have seen her play so much. It's impeccable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Very accomplished player as well. Sometimes I just wonder, you know, how much Pokemon practice do they do? How are they so much better than I am? So I don't know what their secrets are. I think they're all just champions.
They're born champions.
Yeah, absolutely. So it looks like we've got a couple of judges just explaining what the ruling is going to be, or what the fix to this issue that we're having is going to be. So hopefully we'll get underway.
Hopefully it does not end in a game loss. That would be a very heartbreaking end to this match. And with Tord's head going down, it looks like that might be the case.
And sometimes this just happens in games. It's been very long 2 days. You know, you see players make just little mistakes here and there, and unfortunately, it can add up. One of our head judges there, AJ, in the blue, just discussing with both players what's going to happen.
Former commentator, AJ.
Yes, former commentator alongside you. I think it was at the Latin America International Championship, so, you know, he doesn't want to stay away from stream.
Yeah. He's my... judge I call when I need a ruling while I'm on stream.
Oh, yeah, of course. It looks like players are going to make a handshake there.
Oh, no. This is such a heartbreaking end to this star-studded top 8 match. But it does look like with that mistake in game 1, Tord Reklev has been awarded a game loss. So that means Zach Lesage wins this match 2-1. He does move on to top 4, and that means he is 2 matches away from possibly being the Oceania International Champion in 2020.
Yeah, I'm sure. Unfortunate way to end that match, but Zach's going to be really excited to move on to the top 4, I think. He's the kind of player that's been around the scene for a very long time, and to lift a trophy, to be an Oceania International Champion would just be his dream. I think he's put in a lot of work. He's very consistently been playing these sort of fire-type decks as well. He was a big proponent of Blacephalon GX, I think it was, for a long time. Even when people wrote it off, he still played it to great success at many tournaments. So he'll be very proud to do well with a fire deck, I think.
Listen, the man just loves Welder and wants to keep playing it in anything he can. And again, it's not the way you want to take the win, and our condolences to Tord, but that mistake is going to cost him big, and Zach now moves on to top 4 here.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to